Welcome to Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski. In this show, we explore how truth comes to life through real stories and real people. Today, I'm joined by Molly Hildebrandt. She is an internationally certified leadership development trainer and executive coach. In addition to that, she's also an amazing woman, an amazing wife, an amazing mother. I'm really looking forward to you hearing her story. So let's get into it. All right. Hello, Molly. How are you doing?
I'm great. So good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. It's so awesome to have you on the show. I know I've known you for 7 or 8 years now, about, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Well, it's been awesome getting to know you, and the woman I know now is a leadership developer and a keynote speaker and all that. But I also know you have quite the story in a lot of areas. And that's really what I'm excited for people to hear is not only where you came from, but how you got to where you are. So, what can you tell us?
Well, there's a lot of layers to the story of mine to Molly Hildebrandt. Um, so how far back would you like me to go? Where would you like me to begin?
Well, I guess let's start with like what was your life like before? I know you're friends with John Lenhart, and
I
Flowcess
am
has been a big part of your journey.
huge.
Um, but you were really, let me say, successful,
Mhm.
right? With finger quotes before that.
Mm.
So what was that journey like? What was the dream for Molly's life? Go back as far as you want, even as a girl. What was the dream, and what happened to get you to where you are today? Because I know there's been a lot of hills, a lot of valleys.
No, that's such a great setup. Thank you for that. Yeah, so I agree with you that I was, successful before the Molly you see sitting here today, but I think I defined success very differently a decade ago than I do now. Growing up, I thought I always wanted to be a wife and a mom. Like that was my end goal in life, which is great. That's an amazing, beautiful thing that I was excited to offer my family. Then, after having my boys, I entered the corporate world and realized that I really liked it. And I was really good at it. It was very natural for me. So I found myself just really starting to climb the corporate ladder. I was a really hard worker. I grew up on a hobby farm, as we called it. It's more of like a homestead approach now or concept now. So, growing up with my four brothers out in the middle of the country, we worked hard. My first job was on a dairy farm. And so, my parents very much instilled this really strong work ethic within us. And that carried me through my career. And I really leaned into that to climb the corporate ladder. And I I thought like that was kind of became my purpose, really. I thought that was who I was. I was this executive. I was this
Okay.
businesswoman. I was this leader. And I, over time, just continued to pour more and more of myself into that. And I had this interesting moment. So if I think back, like you said, we've known each other 7, 8 years. It was about 8 years ago, before I met you, that I had a crisis, like an identity crisis, essentially. So on the outside looking in from the external, I had it all together. Like I've mentioned, this executive, two beautiful brown eyed boys, this beautiful house, the biggest one on the block, running all the time. I had a wall full of medals that I loved and was so proud of because I was this marathon runner, or
Marathons.
I did two full marathons, but otherwise I was a half marathon junkie, like doing them every weekend for a season of my life. And
I don't know
so
if
on the
I'm
outside,
impressed or tired.
what's that?
I don't know if I'm impressed or tired.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so funny because in that season of life, I remember someone was training for a half marathon and they're like, man, I've just got to get over mile 5 and then I'm good. I was like, that's crazy. I think for me, it's mile 11. And they're like, you can stick with it until mile 11 to feel like you're in the zone. I was like, yeah, I guess I just kind of do. But that was that like just work hard. You've just got to
Yeah.
do more, be better, work hard, play hard mentality, which
Yeah.
again got me really far in my career, but it really led to a lot of burnout and a lot of different mental health challenges that I experienced later in life when I realized just putting more energy in and just efforting more wasn't actually the answer to my happiness, wasn't the answer to my life purpose. And so in this season, when I externally have it all together,
Yeah.
I what a lot of people didn't know was going on behind the scenes was that I was going through a really difficult divorce. Um, I would come home, get my boys from daycare, close the garage door, and walk in the house, and I was just a mess. I was not in a good place mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. I had that going for me, or so I thought,
Yeah.
until one day I was out on a marathon training run, and it was like a more of a wooded, secluded trail. And I actually just passed it the other day when I was driving out to my parents' house, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so secluded. Like, it's near the highway, but you can't really access it except from this one really private back path. And so getting to it is really difficult. But I was on this run. I was going to run 20 miles, 10 miles out and 10 miles back, because it's really hard to find a 10-mile loop in the city that I live in. So
Yeah.
that was just a great way to just shut off my brain and just go get the 10 miles in. And it was around 7 miles that I um I I kind of like blacked out, and I remember coming to and
Oh.
being really scared and not really knowing what was going on with my body, what to do, what are my options. And so I'm scanning everything, and really the only option is to get back to safety. So as I did that, part of my story is that I believe God helped me get to a space where I was able to do that and to physically find the ability to get out of that space. But as a woman on an
Really
extremely
vulnerable.
secluded
Oh.
trail, it was terrifying. You know, I'm 7 miles away from anyone or anything, or so I believe. It's a public trail. Anyone could come along at any time. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety associated with that. And so I got back, and as I started working with doctors and tried to understand more of what was going on with my body in that season, more instances started happening, but different things in my body started shutting down. So maybe I wasn't fully blacking out, but different parts of my body were shutting down in runs. And I had to come to terms and really look at the situation and figure out, is it worth it? Like, do I need to keep running? And that was a massive identity crisis for me, because who is Molly without running? Like, that was my identity.
Yeah.
And that's like the thing people would talk to me about. Hey, Molly, what race do you have coming up? How was your last race? Like, oh, did you see the new pair of running shoes that just came out? And like, everything was running. That was my
Yeah.
life. That was my identity. And so as I had to face the fact of the reality of giving up running and this whole identity crisis, I had to start looking at my life as a whole. Because if I wasn't Molly without running, what was the next thing I was going to take on as my identity? Because I'd already thought Molly, what I have, what I do, those are who Molly is, right? I have, kids, I have a house, so what I do, I'm a runner, I'm an executive. I already had lumped all of that together into my identity. And so as I had this crisis, I had to start unlumping those things and
Yeah.
start separating out what I have isn't who I am, what I do isn't who I am. So then who am I? And it was at this time that, my body started shutting down, that I had to start facing the reality of my mental health and where that had gotten me, behind those closed doors. When I got home at night, I was battling depression pretty severely. I was really struggling with imposter syndrome, really struggling with this lack of confidence, feeling like I had to just prove to everyone that I could be the single mom and still be really successful. I had to prove that I was a career woman. I had to prove that I deserved the position I had earned. And I kept expecting all of these accolades or awards or certifications to help me feel internally good about who I was. But again, that's what I have or what I do. So there was all of these things that I had really um, confused in my life
Yeah.
that led to a lot of mental health things. I mean, we're also dealing with triggers and anxiety and burnout, so many things. So, um, while my career was growing and while my personal life is crumbling, I was continuing to grow my career, continuing to try to overcome all of these personal issues with more success, more, growth corporately. And that's when I actually stumbled across a program called Flosis, as you mentioned. And I decided that that was something that I needed to go through. It seemed completely different from any other certification that I had, any other training or program that I had gone through for work or otherwise. And as I started going through it, we start getting down to the root cause of a lot of these issues that I had been dealing with. I didn't know you could dissolve depression. Like that's a crazy concept to me,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, battling depression for a lot of my life, even, postpartum depression, various things, I didn't know that I could actually take ownership of that journey outside of, medication or things like that. And so that was revolutionary for me, just mind-blowing. And triggers was another thing that I could not believe that I could take back control of my mental health in that way. For so long I was really angry. Um, I very much embraced the victim mindset for a lot of my life, where I thought, these things happened to me. And so, um, yeah, I just being the victim. This is my story. I'm not projecting this on anyone else and their experience of being a victim. But for me, the victim mindset enabled me to not get help, to not actually take ownership of my journey, and to not do anything about it. And so as I started going through this program, I started healing these really big mental health issues. I was able to kind of own my journey. Not kind of, I did. I was able to own my journey and start healing these things and realize that, okay, I have absolutely been a victim to certain things, but I've also been the bully. I've
Yeah.
also been the boss instead of the leader. I've also been fill in the blank. And that's a lot of why my children are acting out. They're the playground bullies. They're the ones that have really unhealthy communication. Why? Because of me.
They
So
learned it from somewhere, right? Yeah.
learn behavior,
Yeah.
right? And that's where we in our house have so much empathy for bullies, because it's something that's learned. Bullies are usually bullied. That's why they bully, right? So we went through this whole journey. I'm healing my mental health. I'm working through this program. And as we start working through it, I'm healing mental health stuff. I'm starting to heal my communication, which is having this huge ripple effect into my relationships. I'm learning how to love. I'm learning what forgiveness actually means, like from the definition, like really healthy definitions. The concept of love just blew my mind. I had always tied so many expectations to people in my life that the idea of love, giving a value without expecting anything in return from the person you gave to, what? Expectations? What do you mean I can't have
Right.
expectations? Well, you
How do you
can,
get
but then
things
you
done?
can't call it
Yeah.
love.
Right. Yeah.
So it just started healing all of these things. And as an effect, I started being able to unlump who I have. I'm sorry, what I have from what I do, from who I am. And I started getting down to my uniqueness and started learning how to live from that place intentionally. And as I started growing in my career, which a ton of things happened there because I started bringing this information into my career. I had 3 promotions in 1 year. I had executives starting to call me for executive coaching. I was taking over leadership development within the organization and completely revamping that. I grew a ton professionally, but the thing for me that had the biggest impact is when I started bringing it home. And I started bringing it to my boys because, like I said, they were the playground bullies, and I didn't know what to do. I felt so helpless and I felt so frustrated all the time. Like, I thought parenting was supposed to be really fulfilling. I thought parenting was supposed to be this great experience. Why is it so hard?
Yeah.
Why do I feel so defeated and frustrated all the time? Why do I struggle to interact with my kids? And dare I say, I'm going to say it. It's a little vulnerable, a little risky to say it. But like, there was a season where I didn't like my kids, not because of them, but because I didn't know how to show up in a healthy way for my kids. So all of these issues come back to me, right?
Yeah.
And what's crazy for me is that when I saw and I started bringing this home is when we went from the boys being these playground bullies to these classroom leaders. I still remember vividly we were on a walk by my house. We lived a block from a lake, a public access to a lake. And they were on their little bikes and I would walk by them and we would pick up little shells and,
Okay.
little parts, a glass, stuff like that on the beach. And I took a picture of it. And I remember the caption at the time was, who knew that the issues and all the frustration I have with my boys and with parenting all came down to me and who I am and how I'm showing up, how I communicate, how I repair when I'm wrong, my triggers, my mental health, honoring their uniqueness and seeing who they uniquely are and helping more of that come out. Who knew all this time, all of this frustration and feeling of defeat was my fault. And and it's been really beautiful. I mean, that's been 8+ years and we've been able to completely transform our home and completely change who we are. And so when my boys went through that transformation, or when I saw the transformation take place in their lives, that's when I was like, I've got to figure out how to help other people
Oh,
experience
cool.
this. Because I'm not alone in this. I
Right.
am not the only person that's dealing with mental health issues. I'm not the only mom that wonders, is this really what I meant to do? Am I meant to wake up every morning and not want to get out of bed because I know I'm going to feel defeated in the first 5 minutes? I know, I knew it, that I wasn't the only one. And so that's when I went back and I got certified because I knew I needed to help other people have the same transformation. It it didn't need to stop with me. I wanted to be a piece and play a vital part in helping other people experience transformation.
So, do you have any stories of your kids, like from what it was like to what it's like now? I'd love to hear, like, I know it's been quite the journey and it
Yeah.
didn't happen overnight, but I know your kids. I know they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any like contrasting stories you have of what it was like and what it is like now?
Yeah, and this has a lot to do with being a part of a healthy community as well, right? Because for me, it's learning the information, but it's continuing to live it and be supported in it ongoing as well. But yeah, there was this moment. So he's now 13, and I want to be cognizant of the stories that I share because this is their story too. So I want
Right.
to honor their journey as well. But yeah, he is his uniqueness. He's what we call it. If you know this information, and you can go to the link in my bio
Yeah.
to take the quiz to learn your uniqueness. But
Yep.
his uniqueness is someone who feels really big feelings. The way I like to explain it is he feels the future. If there's this organ, it can go way low and way high, like his big feelings. And when they're channeled in the right direction, they're beautiful and they're powerful, and he's encouraging and he's courageous and bold and brave. And when it goes in the wrong direction, it can be kind of destructive. He can double down, triple down on these really intense feelings, and it can cause a lot of damage and a lot of pain. So there was this moment I remember sitting down for dinner one night, and actually, I found it on a video the other day because I was like, no one's going
Oh,
to
really?
believe me. No one's going to believe that our house is this intense, that it's this stressful. No one's going to believe this. So I
Yeah.
remember sitting in that moment, taking the video, and then I found the video the other day. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I still have this. So we're sitting there and he is just raging. He's just yelling and he's screaming and he's frustrated. And what am I trying to do? it's okay, buddy. Like I'm talking really calm to
Yeah.
him. It's okay. You need to take it down. I'm like making statements on him, telling him what he has to do, negating his emotion, telling him take it down. And in hindsight, that's actually one of my triggers because it's negating his uniqueness. It's like
Yeah.
completely not acknowledging who he is. So that was, it just kept getting worse and worse. Why? Because I wasn't feeling what he was feeling. In
Right.
fact, I was negating what he was feeling, which made it so much worse. Now, when he has big feelings, not only has he grown in knowing and understanding his uniqueness, so he's a lot more effective communicating. Hey, I've got really big feelings. I'm going to go take 5 in my room. Or I've got really big feelings. I need a few minutes to go ride my bike, but we'll come back and we'll talk about this. So not only is he grown a ton of maturity, and he's only 13, by the
That's
way.
incredible. Yeah.
So he's grown a ton in that. But now, when he's really mad, I try to be the safest place. When he's feeling these big feelings, I know I don't need to take it personal. I know that he's not mad at me. And that we're just going to feel the feels. Just be that space for him to get it all out. So came home from school one day. His friend was sick, so he was feeling lonely. He was feeling bummed. He had a math test he didn't do well on, or he felt he didn't do well on. He was really frustrated. All these different angsty experiences throughout the day. And they just stacked. And of course, the school environment is not, in my opinion, designed to help kids really kind of experience those emotional experiences and get them out,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so that's not really the purpose. So he comes home and he's got all of these feelings. And I'm like, what's going on, bud? Like, what are you feeling? He's like, I'm just so mad. It's like, all right, let's do this. Like,
Yeah.
let's get it out. And he just got it all out and he's crying and he's, yelling. He's not yelling at me, but we're in a safe place because I know he's got these big feelings. We go in our room outside of the rest of the family, so it's not upsetting the rest of the family. And he's getting all these feelings out. And then afterwards, it was, all right, bud, how are you feeling? And by the way, my response to him is not, oh, that sucks. It's, oh my gosh, I'm going to feel it with him. I'm going to mirror
Yeah.
that emotion. So now I get in it with him. I'm going to
Yeah.
roll up my sleeves. And that's when he feels settled. That's when he feels known. And so we're in this feeling. I'm mirroring this emotion back with him. And he feels seen. He feels heard. He feels known and understood. And he settles. And now
Yeah.
he feels so much more calm, so much more relaxed, and he's able to integrate back into the family. No harm caused, no pain caused, no one's hurt, damaged. And it's a beautiful experience because I know how to step into a space to help support him. And he knows his uniqueness to know what he needs as well. So it's this combination of my growth and his growth together now.
I love that. It reminds me of my son Jack. He would have been around the same age as the son you're sharing about when this happened. Now he's different uniqueness than your
Mm-hmm.
son, but similar in that it's a feelings uniqueness, right? Where he's more feels everybody else's feelings, but still feels things very strongly. And he was a big baseball player when he was around 13, and he would take it really hard when they lose, and he would take it
Mm.
really hard when he didn't play well. And then, of course, everybody with great intentions, his family, some of his friends, even after the game, he's just like, downtrodden and distressed and holding it together though, because he's the guy who is not going to have necessarily the big outward expression. He's going to bear it all, and he's
Mm.
just got everybody saying to him, "Oh, don't worry, like it's okay, you'll get him next time." And I get it. Like I want to say those things too,
Yeah.
because I want him to feel better. But it's almost counterintuitive, the right move. Like you said, Flowcess teaches things differently than anywhere else. And it's because they actually have the model for the mind and the brain. And when
Yes.
we're dealing with feelings, especially, the counterintuitive is like, no, it's the move isn't the first step isn't for me to try to tell you to feel better about whatever the situation is. The first move is for me to connect with you over how you're feeling.
Exactly.
So I remember one day someone in his one of his relatives being like, it's okay, you'll get him next time, and And I said, uh, yeah, it sucks to lose.
Mm.
And this relative was like one of these, like, no, it's like winning or losing doesn't matter, right? You like it's how you play the game. And it's like, okay, I get the I get the idea there, right?
Right.
But I'm like, no, losing like, okay, if you think losing and winning doesn't matter, especially to a 13-year-old playing baseball,
Hmm.
then the next time they win, don't cheer more. Don't cheer louder when they win then. It's like you got a contradiction there. Cheer
Man.
just as loud when they lose as when they win, if it doesn't matter. Me and Jack go in the car though, and this was the move I would always do to him after
Yeah.
when he was bummed out. He'd get in the car and I'd say, dude, we don't have to talk about it at all.
Mm.
You can get your anger out right now as much as you want or as little as you want. Tomorrow, we'll talk about how we want to make some adjustments to what happened today, what
Mm.
we can learn from it, how we can grow. But right now, be pissed off. I don't care. And inevitably, he'd be like, you know, he'd just start yelling or talking like 2, 3 minutes. He'd get a couple things out and then he'd be
Mm-hmm.
calm. And it's like, so that's what they reminded me of with your son. It's just
Yeah.
like, I think we're so quick to want our kids to feel better. We
Yeah.
miss the first step of just treating them like a human
Yep.
and especially when there's times I'm judging what he's going through and minimizing it in my head like this really isn't a big deal. It's baseball. But you know what? It's the biggest deal in the world to him.
Exactly.
And if I minimize it, I'm missing an opportunity too. So yeah, that was such a good story. It yeah, definitely connected me to my son. So thank you.
No,
Yeah,
I think I'm glad you shared that. It makes me think about, how do I want to be treated when I've got big feelings? Whether someone agrees with my feelings or not. Like, that's what's difficult about it is that we have a tendency to then to project our experiences and our perspective on someone else's journey. And
right.
it doesn't honor who they are as a person, and it doesn't honor their uniqueness or their experience or what's important to them. And so by taking those backward steps and being a leader, we can really facilitate them towards being the best version of themselves. But sometimes it does require us to take those backward steps and let them experience what they're going through and share that openly first.
Yeah, I love that. So this is a really great picture of, I mean, even just one of your sons, a great picture of what it used to be like to one slight adjustment based on understanding who he is uniquely has made all the difference. So what's been the journey since, you kind of got to this point where it's like, this is affecting my family in such a profound way. I feel compelled to just pay it forward and
Mhm.
help as many people as I can. So what's been that journey now that you're trying to, be a mouthpiece of truth to the world.
Yeah, so it's unique to each, like, so I want to show up for each one of my children and for my husband, right? Like, it's important for me to connect with each one of them and create that space. But the journey for me, actually in 2021, I was working at a global technology software company, and we separated in 2021, and that's really where I decided to focus on my business. My husband and I, we were working through that season of like, do we go back to work? Do I, try to find another corporate job? I've already started this business a few months back because someone had reached out to me. I'd worked with someone at that global software company, and they had since gone to a different company. They hired me to do an employee presentation for their organization. So I had set up my LLC. I had started my consulting business on the side and was doing little things, off hours. I would take PTO if I needed to do a presentation, or I'd do things in the morning or evening or weekends. And so there came this point of, well, I already have this business. I already have the certifications. I already have the training. Why don't we just focus on this and just continue to build this out? And it was really cool. In the matter of the first week, I'd already had 2 coaching clients, people that
Oh,
had reached out to me and wanted to start working with me. And I had developed, and over time, I didn't have this initially, but I had started developing a like a coaching program. So yes, I am an executive coach and I can work with people like an executive coach, but I wanted to figure out how to facilitate this transformation from a coach's perspective. How can I take someone who is ready to learn the information. I've got access to the best information in the world. I have a lot of experience being this executive coach, from being the head of leadership development in this organization and leading all these training programs and all this stuff. So how can I take all these skills and this experience and marry it with this incredible information? And then when I find these individuals that are ready to experience transformation, they're ready to step into growth, how do I support their journey? What does that look like? So over time, I developed what I call my Flow Leadership Coaching Program. It's a 20-week coaching program that someone goes through. And the way I like to say it is, we need to get you to a place where you are mentally resilient. We need to work through these mental health challenges. We need to work through these issues. We need to repair your communication, help you get into a spot where, you know, every time we communicate, our mental health and the other person's mental health is either getting better or it's getting worse. So we need to know how to communicate. And Flosis has a model for the healthiest way to communicate. Or when it goes wrong, what do we do about it? We repair. So I focus on helping people learn their uniqueness, repair their communication, fix their mental health, get to the root of these issues. And then once we can get them out of a hole and stay out of a hole, that mental resilience, let's get them to the mountaintop. What does that look like? And
Nice.
as you know, I'm one of only a handful of people certified globally to be able to help determine someone's unique process for flow. And
Right.
so I'm able to build on mental resilience. Like a lot of other coaches, a lot of other speakers have a framework or a foundation to help people get to mental resilience, which is awesome and so needed. But there is another level that a lot of people don't know about that we can get to, that your brain experiences all these pleasure chemicals. It's the peak performance, your best mental state. You just experience time dysmorphia, all of these incredible things. Some of the best memories or best experiences of your life, chances are you were flowing. And I help people
Right.
actually figure out how to do that intentionally, not just by accident. So that's really what I do now in my coaching. But what's been really fun is I've been able to take the experience of building out these training programs in this, again, from this company that I worked at, and I build out workshops now for organizations. So we'll have like a half day, like a mental resilience workshop, or a full
Okay.
day team synergy and mental resilience workshop. Or I just partnered with the Boys and Girls Club to help them with a parent's journey to mental resilience, a 4-part series on how to help parents get to that mental resilient place so we're in control of our thought process. So that's what this journey has been like, a lot of networking and connecting and just taking the risk and putting myself out there to be able to help more people. There was this day where I was coaching this leader who was working their way to this CEO position within their organization. And it was an amazing conversation. We had a pivotal breakthrough around her mindset, around who she thinks she is, and the value that she brings to the workplace, and the value that she brings to her family, the value she brings to the world. And we had this incredible breakthrough. And I left it just feeling jacked. And then 2 hours later, I stood in front of a room of 100 people. And I was like,
Yes.
okay, I love coaching. I get so much energy coaching. I can facilitate transformation in a coaching environment. But if I can speak and I can get on a stage, I can help 100 people like this woman. And so that for me was this vision of, I want to speak as much as I can to be able to reach as many people as I can. And so that really pushed me into starting to do more speaking and creating more opportunities to help people in that space.
So there's a lot of different contexts you've been able to bring this information to, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
business to families to parents to keynote speaking. Why do you think you're able to help so many different areas with what you learned from Flowsys?
It's principles. That's so one of the things that I say when I help people or they bring me into the organization is that I can help you in your corporation. But what you're going to find that I do that's different from anyone else is I'm not focusing on the context. I'm focusing on the person. So what I say is I'm going to help the person, the individual, heal and get better so that regardless of the context they show up in, they're going to show up as healthy and whole. And that's the focus. And so it started with leadership development because I'm passionate about leadership, and that was my professional background. But what I would find is when I would meet with a leader who wanted to hire me for coaching, one of the intake steps that I have is we work through what are the top 5 goals that you have? Why did you choose me? What are your goals? So we work through this list of this intake. And usually, I shouldn't even say usually, I actually don't know that I've had one person not have this experience where they have 5 goals. And I'll use this one woman as an example. She's like, okay, I have to come clean. I've been stalking you on social. I was like, social stalking, that is a thing. I know about this. She's like, I found out you're also a parent coach and a marriage coach. I was like, yeah, I do a lot more than just executive coaching. She's like, so my 5 goals, I want to work on my relationship with my 12-year-old daughter. I haven't talked to my mom in 3 years. I want to figure out if we can heal my relationship with my mom. I know my husband and I are meant for more and we could totally get to a better place. I was like, wait, I'm the executive coach. And so I used her story to illustrate that of the 5 goals, without fail, almost without fail, 3 of them are personal.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's like work on communication, feel more empowered, find my voice, all of those
Yeah.
things. But we can always get it down to that principle level. What is the root, the lowest cause, the root cause, and focus on that. And self-esteem grows as you show up as more of yourself, as you take a risk to share more, as you embrace more tension. And instead of hiding from it or running from it, you let more of yourself come out, all of these different strategies that we work through in this coaching process. But yeah, that I would
What
say that,
is So what is self-esteem then? Because it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're helping these people grow in self-esteem.
yeah,
Why is that affecting every context that this person's living in?
because they're in every context. And self-esteem, the definition that I use is it's confidence in your uniqueness. Or
Okay.
another way of saying it is confidence in your unique value. But if you don't know your uniqueness or you don't know your unique value, how can you grow in confidence in that and grow that it is that value and that you bring it to the world? So if we could focus on that from the base level, and we can help empower these individuals to know their uniqueness, understand it, embrace it, and then live and lead from it, then they can start dissolving all of these other issues, and it becomes less of a distraction, worrying about what this person thinks of me and what that person thinks of me, and always questioning your worth and your value. It's a huge distraction, and it takes you away from bringing your best self in a lot of situations. So we start to remove a lot of those distractions by embracing that value and bringing more of that out.
Right. So if your confidence is in your ability to run marathons and you can't, like, that's not your who you are, right? That's not your
Exactly.
intangible driver or your unique value. That is a context. So self-esteem, when seen the way Flow says and you and the truth behind self-esteem is presented, it transcends any context. So
Exactly.
you go right at that, and it just affects everybody in every area of their life. I love the stories of like you helping people at like some workshop at like a corporate office, and then people just tell you how much it's affected their family life and their relationships. And it's like, did you even talk about the relationships? Did you even talk like, oh, cool, I didn't even know you were married. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's
right.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that woman that was sharing about like her 12-year-old daughter, and one of her goals when she started working with me, she had shared that her 12-year-old daughter, when she'd come home from school, she had recently gotten a cell phone. So she would just hole up in her room and she would just sit on her phone or just be in her room by herself, super isolated and secluded from the family all night. And one of the goals she wanted was to be able to build a relationship with her daughter. And by us beginning to understand the mom's uniqueness, who she was, the way that she shows up in the world, and start leaning in that that's a gift, that it's a value, then she started learning her daughter's uniqueness. Then she started being able to connect with her daughter and see her and help more of her daughter come out. They started building this relationship and they started building a connection because they started valuing each other's uniqueness. And then you add in that they started communicating in a healthy way. She started learning how to ask questions. She started learning how to not make statements on her daughter. If she needed help around the house, instead of telling her daughter what to do, I really need some help. Can you help me? So she started connecting with her uniqueness and using healthy communication. Their relationship completely transformed. By the end of our coaching, they had set up 3 times a week a gossip hour where the mom would actually leave work a little early, go get her daughter. They'd go to a local coffee shop, get a little treat, and sit down and talk about everything in the daughter's life for an entire hour, 3 days a
Oh,
week. And the daughter started initiating connection and started initiating coming out of her room, started eating dinner with the family, started wanting to interact because she started being seen and known and understood and valued. So then that grew her self-esteem, that grew her confidence as well. So it has this really cool ripple effect as well.
and it starts with you too, which is why you're helping so many other people, because I know
Yeah.
you have a similar story with your oldest son.
Yeah.
You recently were able to go to Scotland, right? So
Yeah.
I'd love to I'd love to wrap this up with, like, you take as long as you want, but I know you had quite the trip. You brought him to the UK with you, which says a lot in and of itself. But so what was that journey like? Because I know you had this great opportunity to do a speaking engagement, but also brought your son with you.
So my oldest, he's 15, and we were, and mind you, just to kind of lay the stage, all of those mental health issues, he was around 7 when, so he's experiencing all of those and seeing kind of the mess his mom was, right? And so we now, 8 years later, he's grown tremendously in his own self and understanding the unique value that he brings. And it's so
Yeah.
beautiful. He's such an incredible person. So I bring him on our trip. And like you had said, I had this speaking engagement in Scotland. And we decided that, this is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to bring him. So let's go. Let's bring him. Let's enjoy this whole experience. And there was this moment, and I think for me, it was a full circle moment, I guess you could say, where there was this amazing family that we got together with. I wanted him to experience this family because there's 3 girls. There's two, a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and then an 8-year-old. I wanted him to meet the 2 teenage girls because I wanted him to see what high self-esteem looks like as a teenager. I
Nice.
wanted him to see, oh, you don't have to wait till you're 41 to be high self-esteem. You don't have to wait till you're in your 30s or whatever. Like you can achieve that at a young age and have a massive impact on the world around you from a young age. And so I wanted him to meet the girls. I later found out the mom wanted the girls to meet Raiko because
Oh,
she wanted them to see you can be a man as a teenager.
right.
You don't have to settle for boys who are just going to be chasing all of these, effects, all these things they can get from you and from the world. Like it's possible to be with someone who is going to do the right thing, even if it's difficult, do the right thing no matter what they get from it. So it was really cool that we both kind of had these like little secret agendas. And it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I think, but it's all beautiful, right? It's really
Oh,
cool.
yeah. And for
Things
their
that we
benefit
wanted.
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were at dinner with this family, and the mom had asked me a question. And I've only recently started sharing part of my story publicly. I think for a long time, I thought I needed to kind of keep that behind closed doors. I think I didn't realize that it could be shared for other people's benefit the way, which is crazy because you and I know storytelling is how people learn and grow. There's so many reasons that I should share it. But um, she asked me a question about my past, and I started sharing a story about my upbringing and love and how I associated, acts or expectations with love and things like that. And then I talked about how that carried into a relationship. And then suddenly I had this moment of like, oh, he doesn't know my story. I have not shared my story with him because up until now, this hasn't been for his benefit to know it.
Yeah.
And I was worried it'd be a distraction or, all these different reasons why I haven't shared it for him. And I looked at him, I was like, oh, buddy, I'm so sorry. I didn't even like put together like that you're here and you don't know it, like all of these things. Are you okay? And he looked at me, and I try not to cry, but he goes, Mom, people connect with you through your stories. People grow because of your stories. You're helping people because you're sharing your story. Share your story.
Oh,
And it was this
yeah.
full circle moment, and we call that a mad moment, right? Like I still get goosebumps.
Yeah. It's
But
so
it's like
good.
this man moment of him
Oh, yeah.
showing up and being like, even if it might be a little painful or might be a little difficult for me to hear, that's okay. It's for the benefit of the other people that are here. You do what's best. Go ahead and lean into that. So it was really cool. And what I really love about that story for me is that I think it highlights the repair that's taken place in our relationship.
Oh,
From being a mom that would yell or negate or, speak in unhealthy ways. I mean, if we think about the healthy communication guidelines, and when we don't use healthy communication guidelines, it hurts our mental health and others, that can be classified as abuse, right? And so it's like if we think about it from that lens, you could say that I was more of that abusive. I wasn't helping them in their journey for so many years. And so now to see the implementation that I've been able to heal and go through this, but to see that because I was willing to own my story, I was willing to own my journey and not justify it or stay in a victim mindset, but actually do the work to heal and to repair, and then to help facilitate them to do the same thing. Now he's showing up and able to be a man. Now our relationship is able to be completely different than anything I ever imagined because we have the tools to repair. We have the tools and the principles and resources to step into and embrace, and then a community who supports us to do the same. So, yeah, it was a beautiful experience with him.
and honestly, Molly, it's stories like that and the transformation that I've seen in your own life and the life of your family and the life of, your husband and your kids that to me is the greatest credential you have is you have proof that you're not just telling people or teaching or sharing stories for other people to get help, but you're someone who has what you want to give other people. And I've
Mm.
heard you say that in other podcasts. Like you
Yeah,
can't give something you don't have.
exactly.
And you have it. You
Yeah.
have this information. And not only do you have the truth that helps families and parents and executives and marriages, etc., but you've applied it in your own life. And the evidence is it's there. It's there for people to see. So Raiko's right. You should keep telling your story. And one of the things I hear him saying through that is your stories help him too,
Hmm.
not just the people that were at that table, but him as well. And what it was such a man moment for him. What a
Oh,
great
yeah.
picture of repair from, and thank you for painting a picture of what things were like back in your marathon mental health issue days. Because it really does show we can overcome this stuff.
Hmm.
These mental health issues can be repaired.
Yeah.
The intimacy, the communication, the love,
Yes.
all that stuff can be done on purpose
Yes.
if we have the principles that you're teaching. So, what an honor having you on, Molly. Thank you so much. I'd love to do this again in the future. You definitely brought a value to the unlocked audience.
Well, let me
Thanks for being
know.
here.
This is amazing. Thanks for creating a space for people to share their stories. I love this.
Yeah, my pleasure, and yeah, it was wonderful. So you have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Joel.
Amazing, right? So let's dig in a little bit. One of the things that is evident in her story is how much repair she has experienced. It's amazing how she's been able to help so many people. But we can see, and it's important to note that it all started with her. It all started with her, not even just in her home, it started with her as an individual. And that's one of the things I loved about her story is how she even said herself, she took ownership She stopped rationalizing and justifying where her life was, whether that was by blaming others or blaming her mental health issues, and chose to be humble instead. She chose to consider a perspective outside of her own, to consider she could be wrong about how she was trying to cope or handle the situations in her life, the mental health issues she was having, and she really, really went after getting the help. One of the great things in her story was when we talked about how what she's doing helps people in like every context of their life. That's something I'm really passionate about. In this show, we kind of touch on that's the whole point, right? Is let's talk about someone's story, which is a context, pull the truth out of it so that we can apply it to our own lives. We get that truth is the key to being able to apply it or scale it to other contexts. And what it reminded me of is this time me and my friend Jonathan would travel every other week for a few months from Wisconsin to Michigan. And what we were doing is we were building a restoration team there. So, like in the episode where I talked to my mom, Julie Hartris, and to also my brother Ryan, we mentioned the restoration process quite a bit in those episodes. Check out musiclifechurch.com if you're interested. But my point is we were training up a team. One of the gentlemen on the team, unbeknownst to us, had been smoking weed for years, for like as long as he could remember. Well, the restoration process doesn't ask people to share what their addictions are. The restoration process doesn't ask you if you do drugs or drink alcohol. What the restoration process does is it teaches principles. It gives people tools to use that improve their thought process, improve their communication, and improve their intimacy with God, with other people, with anyone in their lives. Those tools are contextless, right? Those are the foundational principles. About 3-4 weeks into the restoration process, this gentleman actually got frustrated with me and Jonathan because he was confused. He didn't know why or how we got him, in quotes, to quit smoking weed. It's like, well, we didn't. What we did is we taught him the tools to help him get healthier. He started applying that information, and the result was the very thing he was looking for and wanting relief from as to why he smoked weed, he was starting to get out of his own thought process. These, the relief, the enjoyment in life, the clarity of thought, the ability to handle stress. He didn't need to smoke weed anymore. So we were able to explain to him, well, it's really the work you did is why you're not smoking weed anymore. We just gave you the information. But that information, what was so cool, it's such a great story that shows when you have the right information, it repairs all the issues within our thought process. We don't have to directly address the issue a person has with smoking weed. If we teach them how their brain works, who they are uniquely, and how to operate in a way that benefits themselves and others, the result is all these other issues or all these techniques we're using to cope with our lives start just dissolving away. One of the other things Molly mentioned a couple times was the communication guidelines. I know I've covered them before. I want to cover them again because they are really quick and simple to cover, and they're really powerful and can make a huge difference in every area of your life if you follow 3 guidelines. 1, make statements on myself. Those are I statements. I think, I feel, I believe. Instead of you statements, you think, you feel, you believe. Number 2, ask questions. This is what people who are interested in understanding you do. They ask you questions. So that's something that I can do if I want to understand other people or if I want to benefit other people, is I can ask them questions. The alternative is if I never ask you a question, what I'm really saying is I'm not trying to understand you more than I do right now. And then number 3 is answer questions that are asked of you. This one seems simple, but it's surprising how often people duck questions. And the alternative is not being understood. So that's usually a question I'll ask people if they duck a question I'm asking is, are you saying you don't want me to understand you? And that usually either results in them answering or results in them recognizing they have a contradiction. So those guidelines: make statements on myself, ask questions, answer questions. Game changer. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is just the thought process in general. So much of what Molly's doing is just helping people using the model for the mind and the brain from Flowcess to really give people the tools they need to thrive in life as unique humans. Key thing to recognize, and she mentioned something like this in the episode, is there are no zero events to the brain. That means I am either getting better or worse in every moment. Another way of looking at that is when I'm not getting better, the default is I'm getting worse. That ought to encourage me to grow, to never settle for even zero, because that's not possible. A lot of Molly's story, in the early part, anyways, was about her having poor mental, emotional, and spiritual life and health, but she had great physical health. And she said, or so I thought. And then the incident happened where she blacked out running. And it makes you think, like, how much of that was the result of her thought life, her emotional life, her spiritual life. And I think Molly would tell you, yeah, a lot of it, if not most of it, right? But the reality is, there's studies that have shown 90% of all ailments we experience as humans are the result of an unhealthy thought process. So the way we think definitely impacts the way we feel physically. And one of the things I see in my community often is when people are sick, when they're feeling you know tired, under the weather, is oftentimes the first question is, like, have I been sharing enough lately? Or maybe I'm treating somebody uh according, like, to a standard I'm not holding myself to, and there's a contradiction there. Or maybe I'm not growing. And these things can leak out and affect the way we feel, and the illnesses we have are often a direct result of those issues within our thought process. So my encouragement to all of you is to really take a cue from Molly, take ownership of your life, and pursue the truth, and really go after finding the areas, even if it means finding out where you're wrong. I would say especially the areas where I find I'm wrong tend to be, not even tend, they are the areas where I have the greatest opportunity for growth, which means those are the greatest areas in my life for me to improve my overall health. So thanks for listening. My one question for you all: I loved Molly talked about success early on. What's your definition for success? Does it have to do with the intangible or the tangible? So thank you. That is it for today on Unlocked. I am Dr. Joel Swakowski. You can find Molly Hildebrandt on Instagram. That's the main place that I would find her. It's the Molly Hildebrandt. Pretty easy to find. She does a lot of work on there and shares a lot of great information for free. It's really amazing. You can also find her on LinkedIn. You can find her on her own website. I also want to just note the restoration process that Music of Life Church offers. You can go to musicoflifechurch.com, find it there, enroll there if you're interested. You can also go to flowsys.com if you want to find out your uniqueness. And I've heard Molly is looking to, in September 2025, to present an Unmasking Your Uniqueness online course. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead, like and follow and all that stuff. Use the information that she teaches, and it may just bring you the repair you've been looking for. Thank you for listening. Keep seeking truth. Keep living it out. We'll see you next time.